The snow whipped like knives across the frozen street. Rex, a loyal dog with eyes too sharp for any ordinary beast, sensed it first. Two strangers huddled, shivering, whispering in the dark. He growled low, a warning and a question. Something about them wasn't right. His fur bristled, breath steaming in the icy air as he stepped closer. A shadow flickered behind the alley wall. Would he protect them, or was he walking straight into a trap? The morning sun broke through frost-stiffened windows, dusting the small cabin in gold. Emma stretched, feeling the cold seep into her bones, and immediately felt the warm weight of Rex nudging her shoulder. Loyal, tireless Rex, the dog who had followed her through every scraped knee and sleepless night, sat patiently, tail thumping softly against the wooden floor. "Morning, boy," she murmured, scratching behind his ears. His ears flicked, alert, scanning the quiet cabin as if he could hear whispers in the walls. They had been together for 5 years now, inseparable in ways that words barely touched. When she laughed, he barked once, low and approving. When she cried, he rested his head on her lap, patient as the mountains themselves. Breakfast was a ritual of warmth and routine. Emma poured oatmeal into a chipped bowl, and Rex sat rigid, eyes fixed, waiting for the signal. Their silence spoke volumes. No words needed, just trust and shared rhythm. Outside, the wind stirred the pines, and Emma shivered despite the thick sweater she wore. Rex padded to the door, nose twitching. Something, just a hint, made him stiffen. A shadow, perhaps, slipping between the trees? Emma laughed nervously. "You're imagining things, boy." Yet Rex did not relax. His tail was still, ears pinned forward, a low rumble in his chest that made Emma pause. She reached for the leash, intending a quick walk before the world woke fully, but the air felt heavier than usual, charged. The kind of silence that pressed against your ears and made every crack of ice underfoot sound like a warning. They stepped into the snow together. Footprints followed theirs in a perfect line, but something about the woods seemed off. The usual chatter of birds was gone, replaced by a haunting hush. Rex sniffed, his body taut, growling softly under his breath. Emma felt a shiver creep down her spine. Something was coming, she didn't know what, but Rex already did. Snow fell harder now, whipping sideways against the edges of the forest road. Emma's boots crunched through the powder, each step echoing like a heartbeat in the silent expanse. Rex ran slightly ahead, ears forward, tail stiff, every muscle coiled with alertness. Something was out there, something Emma couldn't see but Rex could. She tried to shake off the unease curling in her chest. "I'm fine, boy," she whispered, though her voice sounded hollow in the frosted air. Rex paused mid-step, sniffing the wind, hackles rising. A low growl rolled from his throat, barely audible over the hiss of the snow. Emma froze, scanning the trees. Shadows leapt at the corners of her vision. Every branch seemed heavier, every snow-laden pine bending as if to watch. They reached the old bridge, the one that creaked under weight and rattled against the current below. Rex hesitated, glancing at the darkened water, then back at Emma. The unease in his eyes mirrored hers, though hers was buried under the pretense of calm. A sudden crack, sharp, metallic, shattered the quiet. Rex barked, charging ahead, fur bristling, teeth bared. Emma followed, heart hammering, adrenaline slicing through the cold. The source of the noise was unclear. An abandoned sled, tipped and half-buried in snow, lay at the side of the trail. But it wasn't the sled that set Rex off again. He nosed the air, growling, circling in tight, precise arcs, eyes never leaving the tree line. Emma shivered. "What is it, Rex?" A rustle answered her question, a deliberate, slow movement among the pines. Not the jitter of a rabbit, not the cautious shuffle of a deer. Something deliberate. Something watching. Rex barked again, a sound both warning and challenge. The wind caught his growl and carried it, and the sound seemed to vanish into shadows that weren't shadows, shapes that weren't shapes. Emma's stomach tightened. They moved forward, cautiously. Every step felt like trespassing into something unseen. Rex's nose twitched as he sniffed the snow, then he darted suddenly toward a broken path through the forest, nose down, paws pounding against the crusted snow. Emma ran after him, breath ripping through her chest, heart in her throat. There, half hidden by a snowbank, two figures huddled, shivering, their faces pale, eyes wide with fear. Emma froze. "Oh my God," she whispered. Rex stood rigid, body a coiled spring, hackles raised, teeth bared. The strangers didn't move at first, then one lifted a hand slowly, trembling. "Please, help." The air shifted suddenly. A gust of wind swept down the valley, and the snow swirled around them like a living thing. Rex growled, the sound low and threatening. Emma felt it, something was coming. Not just the cold, not just the shadows, but something bigger, darker, and utterly silent. Her instinct screamed. She reached for the strangers, but Rex stepped between them and her, snarling, eyes fixed on the tree-line. Something moved there, too fast to see, too deliberate to be animal. A shadow detached itself from the others, sliding between trees, watching, waiting. Rex lunged, barking furiously, his body tense as a drawn bow. The stranger closest to Emma stumbled back, startled. "What is it?" the other whispered, voice quivering. Emma had no answer. The fear clawing at her chest was not theirs, not fully. It was hers, amplified by Rex's alarm, by the way his body vibrated with an understanding of danger humans could not feel. Another snap of a branch. Another shadow, closer this time. The strangers began to tremble violently. Rex barked again, louder, deeper, a warning, a threat, a promise to protect. "Stay behind me, Rex," Emma said, though she knew she wasn't in control. He refused, circling, growling at the darkness. It pressed toward them, slow, deliberate, moving between the trees with an impossible silence. Emma felt it in her bones. They weren't alone. Not even close. Suddenly, the figures in the shadows shifted, revealing glimpses of shapes, too large to be human, too quiet to be animals. Rex's growl escalated into a roar, his body rigid, his teeth glinting in the weak light. The strangers huddled closer to Emma, eyes wide with panic. What is that?" one stammered. Emma didn't know. But she knew Rex did. She followed his gaze, trying to see what he saw, and glimpsed it. Movement, unnatural, calculated, and closer than she thought. Her heart leapt into her throat. Every survival instinct screamed at her to run, but her feet were rooted in the snow, frozen with dread. Rex moved in front of her, growling, hackles raised, body coiled like a spring ready to strike. The shadows shifted again. One of them stepped forward, and the snow seemed to bend around it, unnatural, impossible. Rex lunged. The figure paused as if sensing him, then vanished, swallowed by the trees. The others followed, leaving only a silence that pressed against them, heavier than snow or wind. Emma knelt beside the strangers, checking them quickly. "Are you okay?" she asked, voice shaking. But her eyes kept darting to the tree-line, searching for movement, for signs of whatever had been there. Rex remained alert, chest heaving, ears flicking, eyes scanning. He would not relax. He could not. A sudden howl pierced the air, distant but close, chilling and guttural, echoing off the snow and ice. Rex's body tensed like a spring. The strangers whimpered, clinging to Emma. "It's coming," she whispered, more to herself than to them. "It's not over." Rex barked again, long and urgent, his body vibrating with a fierce intelligence. Something in the forest was moving toward them, unseen but felt, relentless and silent. Emma's chest tightened. She had no plan. She had no idea what waited in the dark. Only Rex, her loyal, fearless protector, stood between them and the unknown. And then, just as suddenly as it had begun, everything fell silent. The wind stopped. The snow ceased to swirl. Even Rex froze, ears twitching, growl fading to a tense hum. Emma's eyes searched the trees, trying to pierce the shadows. Nothing moved. Nothing breathed. But the air smelled wrong, cold, sharp, metallic. And from the darkness, a single, impossible shadow stretched toward them, slow, deliberate, and entirely alive. Rex's growl returned, low and warning, vibrating through the snow and into Emma's bones. The strangers clutched her arms. Emma's heart raced. The shadow edged closer, silent, calculating, and utterly certain. And then a voice, hollow and cold, cut through the quiet. "You shouldn't have come here." The shadow surged forward like liquid darkness, sliding over the snow with impossible speed, and Emma felt the world tilt as a primal scream tore from her throat. But before she could move, Rex lunged, a blur of teeth and muscle, colliding with the shadow in a clash that sent snow spraying in every direction. The strangers screamed, huddling together as the wind howled, branches snapping like brittle bones, and Rex's growls echoed through the frozen forest, deep, feral, filled with warning and fury, his fur bristling, eyes alight with intelligence and something that almost looked like fearlessness, as if he alone could see the true shape of the threat, something beyond human comprehension, something that had been stalking them with deliberate patience, feeding on the silence, the cold, the unsuspecting hearts beating too fast. Emma stumbled after him, boots sinking into the snow, hands reaching for the strangers, but the shadow recoiled from Rex, then shifted, folding into the air. As if it had no substance, no weight, but its presence pressed down on her chest, making every breath a labor, and then, suddenly, it solidified, a figure taller than any man, skin dark and rippling like oil on water, eyes glowing faintly crimson, hands stretching long and cruel, and it spoke again, voice scraping across the ice. "You cannot protect them," and Emma felt the hopelessness crawl up her spine, but Rex barked again, a sound that shattered the silence and startled the shadow, and in a movement too fast for her to track, he launched himself at its legs, biting, thrashing, spinning, using every ounce of strength and courage, his loyalty like fire burning in the freezing air. The shadow shrieked, recoiling, but the moment of distraction was enough. Emma grabbed the strangers, dragging them behind her as Rex continued to fight, growling and snapping, his body twisting with impossible precision, forcing the creature back step by step, until it surged again, faster, angrier, and the snow itself seemed to rise in defiance, whipping around them in a storm of white, and she realized, heart-hammering, that the thing was not just shadow, not just predator, but a twisted echo of the forest itself, feeding on fear and cold and human weakness, and Rex, sensing every twitch of its movements, every imperceptible change in its unnatural posture, darted between its attacks, snapping and biting, his teeth flashing, fur matted with snow and ice, a heroic force that refused to yield. And then the shadow lunged directly at the strangers, and Rex met it head-on, crashing into it with a force that sent them both skidding across the icy ground, snow exploding around them, and Emma screamed, tears freezing on her cheeks, praying it would be enough, praying her dog could hold on, and for a heart-stopping moment time slowed, the forest holding its breath, the wind still, and then Rex emerged, trembling, bloodied but unbowed, the shadow dissipating like mist under sunlight, retreating with a final, echoing hiss that promised it would return, and the strangers collapsed against Emma, shivering, gasping, eyes wide with disbelief and gratitude, and Emma wrapped her arms around Rex, her hero, her protector, her heart full of awe and terror, and she whispered through the ringing silence, "You saved us, again." And Rex, panting, head pressed to her chest, eyes glowing with triumph and something almost human, let out a single victorious bark that carried across the snow-laden forest, a declaration that he would never let the darkness take them, a promise sealed in loyalty, courage, and love, and in that moment, Emma understood that the night, the shadows, the fear, they could come again, but as long as Rex stood by her side, she was never truly alone. The forest was silent now, the storm of shadows and snow reduced to a memory that left the world feeling fragile, brittle, and impossibly quiet. Emma sat in the snow, arms wrapped around Rex, letting the warmth of his fur seep into her frozen fingers and chilled bones. The strangers, still shivering, clung to each other, their wide eyes slowly filling with gratitude and relief, though their breaths came in ragged gasps, like they were still trying to reconcile the impossibility of what had just happened. Rex rested his head against Emma's shoulder, chest heaving from exertion, his fur matted with snow and specks of crimson, but his eyes were alive with the calm aftermath of victory, the deep understanding that he had fulfilled his purpose, that his loyalty and courage had turned the tide when hope seemed lost. "Thank you," Emma whispered to him, voice trembling, unsure if she was thanking him, the strangers, or the forest itself for letting them survive. He nudged her hand with his nose, gentle, grounding, a reminder that even in the chaos of fear and near death, some things endured. The strangers murmured their thanks as well, still gripping the edges of their coats, still in shock, still tethered to fear and awe by threads too thin to be strong, yet resilient enough to carry them through the icy silence. Emma helped them to their feet, leaning heavily on Rex as she did, feeling the weight of adrenaline fade into bone-deep exhaustion, and the snow underfoot crunched like a fragile echo of the chaos that had passed, every step a reclamation of calm after the storm. The sun, long hidden by the heavy gray clouds, began to peek through the trees, a pale gold light that struck the snow and made it shimmer like scattered diamonds. Emma's gaze fell on Rex, kneeling beside her, his fur catching the sun in shades of bronze and silver, eyes focused and intelligent, a silent guardian who had carried them all through darkness. In the cold aftermath she could see not just a dog but a soul, a presence with wisdom and bravery that rivaled any human, and she felt the bond between them deepen in a way that words could barely touch. Each heartbeat, each exhale of warm air into the frozen morning, was a testament to the trust and love they shared, forged in quiet moments and solidified in moments of terror. The strangers began to speak, haltingly at first, recounting bits of their story, their fear, their relief, but Emma's mind lingered on Rex, how he had sensed the danger no human could perceive, how he had moved with precision, courage, and an unyielding sense of duty. She realized as they spoke that the forest had tested them, not just them but her and Rex, and that in surviving it, they had been marked by something greater than fear, something that knit them closer together with invisible threads of trust and understanding. Her hand found his head again, stroking the fur that was warm under her fingers, and Rex leaned into her touch, eyes closing briefly, the soft sound of his breath steady and reassuring, a rhythm that made her chest unclench and her heart settle into the slow beat of gratitude. They began the walk back to the cabin, moving slowly, carefully, each footstep carrying them farther from the terror and closer to safety. Rex walked slightly ahead at first, then circled back constantly, ensuring they followed, ensuring that nothing hidden in the snow or trees could reach them. The strangers kept glancing at him, their eyes wide with a mix of wonder and disbelief, and Emma realized that they had witnessed not just survival, but heroism raw and untamed, that could not be measured in words alone. The forest seemed calmer now, almost reverent, the way it held its breath as if acknowledging the courage of one small dog and the humans who relied on him. By the time they reached the cabin, their cheeks numb, noses red, hands frozen despite layers of gloves, Emma felt a slow sense of victory settle over her, mingled with relief, gratitude and awe. The strangers huddled inside, offered blankets and hot tea, and Emma leaned against the doorframe, watching Rex patrol the perimeter, his body still taut with protective vigilance, ears twitching at every sound, nose sniffing the wind. He had not yet allowed himself the luxury of relaxation, the kind that came when the danger had truly passed, but Emma knew he would, in time. She approached him slowly, calling his name softly, and he turned, eyes meeting hers, a silent acknowledgement passing between them, a conversation that needed no words. Night fell over the forest, but inside the cabin, warmth spread from the wood stove and the shared presence of survivors. The strangers were calmer now, wrapped in blankets, speaking in hushed tones, laughter beginning to pierce the tension of the day, but Emma's eyes never left Rex. He lay at her feet, body curled, yet one eye remained open, alert even in rest, a sentinel who had fought through the impossible to protect those he loved. She reached down, resting her hand on his head again, feeling the rise and fall of his chest, hearing the slow, steady thrum of life and loyalty intertwined. Hours passed. Stories were shared, tea was sipped, and the night grew deeper, quieter, except for the occasional crackle of the fire. Emma found herself speaking softly to Rex, recounting moments from the day, moments of fear, moments of courage, moments that had defined them both. He listened, as always, silently, offering warmth and presence, comfort and reassurance. She realized that while the shadows might return, while the forest might again hide things beyond comprehension, the bond between them had become unbreakable, forged in snow, fear and triumph, stronger than the cold, the dark or the unknown. By the time sleep settled over the cabin, it was a heavy, necessary weight. Rex lay beside her bed, head resting near her feet, eyes finally closed in trust, in peace, in the knowledge that they had survived, that they had endured, and that love, loyalty, and courage had prevailed. Emma drifted into a quiet sleep, heart lightened by relief and gratitude, her hand resting on his fur, fingers tracing the familiar lines, the scars of snow and battle, the traces of heroism that could never be erased. Morning came slowly. Sunlight spilled across the cabin, warming the frost-streaked windows, and the world felt softer, safer, almost fragile in its beauty. The strangers prepared to leave, their steps steadier, their voices stronger, and they spoke their thanks one last time, eyes full of awe at the dog who had saved them, a creature whose loyalty and courage had rewritten the rules of survival in that forest. Emma hugged them, feeling the strange, fleeting bond that only those who have faced fear together could share, then turned her attention fully to Rex. He looked at her, head cocked, eyes bright with intelligence and life, and she knelt, pressing her forehead to his. "You are my hero," she whispered, voice thick with emotion, "and I will never forget today. Never forget you." He nuzzled her, soft, warm, a silent agreement, and the bond between them deepened in ways that could not be measured, only felt. The forest outside was quiet, serene, but Emma knew that it carried secrets, dangers that would return, shadows that would creep again. Yet for now, in the warmth of the cabin, in the presence of those who survived, in the soft breath and steady heartbeat of her loyal dog, she understood something essential. Courage is not the absence of fear, but the choice to stand and fight, to protect, to love fiercely, and to never let darkness claim those who depend on you. Rex had chosen that path, and in doing so he had given her more than safety. He had given her hope, trust, and a reminder that even in the coldest, darkest nights, loyalty and love could light the way. Emma stood at the door for a moment, looking out at the snow-blanketed forest, hand resting on Rex's head. She felt the weight of the day, the terror, the triumph, the unspoken promise that whatever came next they would face it together. The strangers had gone, the world had returned to its normal rhythm, but the bond between a woman and her dog, tested in fire and snow, had been forged forever. She knelt once more, pressing a kiss to Rex's muzzle. "We made it," she said, voice trembling, full of awe and gratitude, "and we always will." Rex barked softly, a sound that carried the weight of all he had done, all he would do, a hero silent in his vigilance, fierce in his loyalty, and Emma knew deep in her soul that no darkness could ever break them, because love, courage and trust were stronger than any shadow, and as long as he was by her side she would never walk alone again.